Welcome to my review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2. Crazy that I'm here and in a position to be able to do this, because somehow I've watched all of Season 2, it's been and gone. What an experience. But you know, if you're watching this, you probably watched a few of my reactions, so you probably know how much of a journey it's been for me. But basically, when I finished Season 1 of Buffy, I asked people if they wanted me to do a review of it, and they did, so I did one, and it did just as well as the reactions did, which was very flattering. People enjoyed me rambling for 45 minutes, so that's always good, because that's kind of what I do best. So I knew I'd probably just make a thing of it every season to do a review at the end. And yeah, I've been really looking forward to getting to the position where I can do this review, because I like having a really kind of in-depth discussion about Buffy, and I like to do in-depth discussions at the end of all of my reactions anyway, but now I can like look at the season as a whole. I think it's quite interesting to look back and celebrate what a fucking amazing season of television this was. Obviously, some episodes are better than others. I liked some things more than others, but that's kind of how it works. And obviously that's kind of my personal opinion, which is what I'm going to be giving in this review, as well as a bit of input from you guys from a little request I had on my channel in my community posts a couple of weeks ago. I asked you to give me your 3 favourite episodes from Season 2, and that will come into play a bit later on, because I wanted this review to kind of be a lot more well-rounded than my Season 1 review, and to do that I wanted to see what you guys thought of some of the episodes, so we'll get on to that later. But for now, how this is going to work is I've got some notes here, which is why I'm going to be looking down a bit at my 4 pages of notes. Oops. And this review is going to be split into 6 sections, so I'm going to be giving my general thoughts and observations and feelings about the season as a whole. Then I'm going to be revisiting the Season 2 predictions I made at the end of my Season 1 review. Then I'm going to be talking about the characters, then talking about the themes, then I'll be looking at some favourite episodes, both yours and mine, and then finally my predictions for Season 3. So yeah, we might as well just get right on into it and look at my general thoughts. I mean, the first thing, I think the obvious thing to start with is that this is a massive improvement on Season 1, even though I still really like Season 1 for what it is. You know, having had Season 2 now and seeing just how good it was, you can tell there were quite a few missteps in Season 1, but you know, we can't belittle it, because you know, without Season 1 we would never have gotten to Season 2, so you know, every kind of step on this journey is important. And you know what, I still maintain I, Robot You Jane is a damn good episode. I really enjoy it, but yeah, I'm the only person in the world who thinks that, so it's okay. But yeah, I feel like with Season 2, particularly in the second half of the season, kind of when Surprised and Innocent kind of kicked off, it really found its own identity and became its own thing, and there was a lot less focus on like some of the outside kind of references. You know, obviously we still had revisitations of like classic horror monsters, if you will, like werewolves or creatures from the Black Lagoon, stuff like that, ghosts, things like that, but I feel like Season 1 had a lot more kind of influences from other horror tropes and stuff, and obviously Buffy naturally turned a lot of those on its head, from the very first scene with Darla being apparently the damsel in distress, but then turns out to be the monster. So it's always kind of done that and turned things on its head, but it also borrowed a lot from outside references, whereas I feel like Buffy really kind of found its own identity as a show throughout Season 2, and I can see what people were talking about when they said Season 2 really kind of is where Buffy begins. So yeah, they kind of also, with a few exceptions, they very quickly move away from the monster of the week kind of thing, which was the majority of season one. Not that that's a bad approach at all. A lot of shows will do that, and that's fair enough. But it definitely kind of narratively, I felt a huge shift in season two because we had a bigger kind of overarching plot. Obviously, we had like the Master and the Anointed One in season one, and there was kind of slightly revisitation of that at the start of this season, although the Anointed One was very quickly dealt with, as was the Master's skeleton. But overall, I feel like it was definitely more character arcs as individual characters, but also the general plot of the season, I feel like, had a bigger focus on things. We saw a lot more of like Spike and Drusilla and Angelus in season two than we did of the Master in season one. So I feel like they definitely got the balance right of the big bads. Do you remember when everyone corrected me saying how Buffy invented the term big bad, and I didn't know that, and then I got like 2.4 billion comments telling me good times. But yeah, as it formed its own identity, I still really like that it wasn't afraid to reference its past in season one. There were quite a few references to the infamous She-Mantis, and some plots of some old episodes. They still reference those throughout season two, which I really enjoyed. And obviously we kind of had some characters from season one being brought back, like Amy, who's kind of become the witch in her own right, and I really like that kind of thing, revisiting these plots and characters from season one, while season two very much being its own story thread. And I like that. I like that there's like a continuity there, and it just helps to kind of examine and show the growth of not only the show but the characters by referencing their past. And I also feel like, as a whole, the writing just took a whole other level in season two. Obviously there were some great scripts in season one, but I think for the most part there was definitely some really fantastic bits of writing in season two, probably because they had more time to plan it, because I believe season one was quite a rushed kind of affair as a mid-season replacement, whereas they had the time to plan out and had a whole 22 episode season to plan out a story arc. So it makes sense that they could really focus on the writing and not have to rush as much as they did with season one, which is kind of why I can forgive a lot of faults for season one, because it seemed like quite a hurried thing. So yeah, the writing was great. The production, obviously, some of the costumes, like Reptile Boy and the werewolf and stuff, not brilliant. But I feel like there's some really, maybe if not good per se, interesting and different designs for like some of the monsters and demons we met throughout season two. So I feel like there's lots of improvement there. See, the show looks better. I think the music we had in the show, particularly the Remembering Jenny song, I love that bit of music so much. That hits me in the feels every time it gets used. And just thinking of Jenny makes me want to cry. So yeah, the music and everything, the production is definitely, again, a big improvement on season one. And the cast. Obviously there was some great acting on display in season one, particularly in the season one finale. But man, I think a lot of the cast hit a whole other level in season two, just because I think they were given better material to work with as a whole. But Sarah Michelle Gellar, Anthony Stewart Head, David Boreanaz, I think, has come such a fucking long way from season one. I think, as tragic as it sounds, Angel reverting back to Angelus is probably the best thing that could have happened to him this season in terms of David Boreanaz's performance, because he really had the chance to shine in that role, and I think he nailed it. He was definitely, I think, the best villain Buffy's had so far. So I love that, even though it's the whole plot behind it and everything is absolutely heartbreaking. The performances and the way they the actors brought to life this story with Buffy losing Angel and him becoming Angelus and stuff. Whole other level. So yeah, as a whole, in terms of production and the cast, another level on season 2 again. And I also really liked, again, this is probably because they had more time to plan, how well structured I felt this season was. Maybe with the exception of Go Fish, I felt that was very oddly placed in the lineup of episodes. It was very well structured, and I think a major part of that for me is the use of 2-part stories throughout, which I didn't actually think Buffy did until we got to this season. And I really love that they do that. Love a good 2-parter. Me, Doctor Who's my favourite show. I love a good 2-parter. So we had it in the What's My Line 2-parter. Surprise and Innocence are kind of a 2-parter as well. Obviously, Becoming part 1 and 2 as well. So I feel like the use of 2-parters, and I feel like they were very nicely spread across the season as well, really worked structurally. I feel like they came at just the right time. And obviously the 2-parter with Surprise and Innocence was kind of when the show itself completely became something incredible. And I feel like it also avoided some of the filler episodes you might get in 22 episode seasons. Because I feel like when you have a season that long, you do well to not have at least 1 or 2 filler episodes in there. But the fact that we had some 2-parters, I feel like really helped avoid, for the most part, having loads of filler episodes dotted throughout the season. Because honestly, there must have been 2 or 3 that felt like filler this season, and the rest of them, I feel like they all offered something, even if not to the overall plot, to different characters. And yeah, just as a whole, I feel like there's a clearer and more well-defined story arc in season 2, be it smaller character ones or the bigger one. Particularly, I feel like the second half of the season excelled with that standpoint. And the use of characters, I feel, was also a lot better in season 2. Every major character had either an arc or journey to go on throughout the season, or even if they didn't, or at least didn't have a major change or a major story arc to themselves, they still had their moments to shine. And there was a great balance of that. I'm kind of thinking Oz, maybe. I know he's not a main character, per se. And he did have the whole kind of werewolf thing, but that was 1 episode. But I still feel like we know him really well. And that's probably due to the writing and Seth Green's brilliant performance. But he still had loads of moments to shine. So I think the use of characters overall and their character arcs was just superb in season 2. So I think that's kind of the general impression that I have of season 2 as a whole. Very well structured, very well kind of put together and performed and written. Definitely improved basically on all cylinders from season 1. So I think, it was probably already clear even without this review, but season 2, man, damn, good shit. It's good shit. So next we're going to move on to the second section, is when I'm revisiting some of the predictions I had at the end of my season 1 review. One of them was kind of a jokey one, and 2 of them were more serious, and I said, as my jokey one, that the she-mantis would make her return in season 2. And you know what? Technically, I was right. Okay, technically, because it got a lot of mentions. So, in a way, it came back. I distinctly remember having some hideous flashbacks to that episode when she was mentioned in season 2. So technically, I was correct. So I'm going to give myself a point. And then I kind of regret my prediction for this one, because I said we'd see more of Angel and see more of Miss Calendar. I regret that. I regret that prediction, because we did, and it ripped my fucking heart out. But we needed, I feel like, to see more of those characters. We certainly did. I suppose we didn't see a lot more of Angel. Because honestly, I can't remember a lot about what Angel brought to the show before he became Angelus this season, I'll be honest. The thing that sticks out to me most before he became Angelus was in the Dark Age, that really clever solution where he kind of allowed the demon to possess him, and then the demon that was inside of him killed that demon. Still one of my favourite solutions to a Buffy episode. I thought that's so fucking clever. But yeah, we still got a lot more of Angel in this season, even though a lot of it was also him being Angelus. But yeah, I'm glad we got more, and I'm glad I was right that we would see more of Angel in this season. But obviously, the way we saw more of him was absolutely gut-wrenching. Just like the use of Miss Calendar. I mean, it's a damn good story. You know, Jenny's death. It really is, and it improved the stakes. It made Angelus it made Angelus a really effective villain because he'd caused, you know, some absolute devastation in the group. And you know, we saw a bit more explanation of Jenny and Giles' relationship, which I absolutely adored. And then we got a bit more about her past. It turns out she was like a gypsy and she was there for Angel, really. And then we have that cruel twist of fate. It's just when everyone's starting to forgive her for her deception. She's murdered. Yay. God, that episode was devastating. All the time I just think about that scene where Giles is going up to his bedroom and just finds her body there. Oh, and that scene in the finale where Drusilla makes Giles see Jenny stood there. Fuck that scene. Fuck it. Oh my god, that was so sad. So yeah, I'm glad we saw more of Miss Calendar in this season, even though we've probably seen the last of her now. And I'm sad that she is no longer with us. That does make me sad, because I loved her and Giles. But her death has some real emotional weight, and it is a damn good story, even if it is kind of heartbreaking that we're losing what I thought was a really interesting character. So yeah, I'm sad I predicted more of Jenny, because I didn't realise it would, you know, break my heart quite as much as it did. So yeah, and then the final prediction I made for season 2 was that we'd properly address Willow's crush on Xander, and she would either get with Xander or move on from it. And I feel like that's kind of a yes and no kind of thing, because I'm not sure she's entirely over it, which worries me greatly, especially with Xander's little confession of love in the finale, which I kind of took to be romantic kind of love, because he kind of seen her in danger. But we'll see, I could be wrong, but that seemed to be what they were going for. That's how I read it. But at the same time, she definitely has feelings for Oz, and they're together now, so she has definitely kind of moved on in that sense, in the same way, you know, I feel like she started moving on properly where she saw Xander and Cordelia together. But yeah, it's a yes and no kind of thing, because I feel like that storyline isn't completely wrapped up just yet, and I don't think she's entirely over Xander, you know, even as much as I love Willow and Oz, and I'm actively rooting for them to work things out and stay together. You know, I'm not going to pretend like Willow's completely over Xander, because I don't think she is. So I feel like it's going to be something else for season 3. But we did have some moments where they really addressed that whole thing, particularly in Innocence, when she found out about Xander and Cordelia. And also, they, you know, Willow and Xander did have that kind of romantic moment in episode 1. So yeah, I feel like that story's not quite over yet. So it's a yes and no on that prediction I had. So yeah, those are my predictions. I think I did fairly well predicting what was going to happen next, even though a lot of it completely wrecked my emotions. Anyway, let's move on to the character study portion of the review. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about every single character that appeared in the season, because, you know, we'd be here for a very long time. But, you know, I'll go through like the main characters and the main supporting characters that I feel like deserve a mention as I talk about the season as a whole. So obviously, if they're only in like 1 or 2 episodes of the season, I feel like maybe they're not as worth mentioning as some other ones. So I'll try and be concise in my, giving my thoughts, but we'll see how it goes. So I think it makes most sense to start with Buffy, and I think it was a really smart move for episode 1 to kind of focus on how her death in the season 1 finale had changed Buffy, and we saw kind of a different personality to her, because that allowed us to examine how much she changed since we first saw her in the show, and then it also allows us to kind of really see how much she's changed by the season's end, where she's kind of numb, I think, to life, and she's lost everything, which is tragic. And I feel like we see this really sad journey of a very young girl who I feel like has a lot of love to give, particularly to Angel, but her kind of destiny stops her from doing that a lot of the time. And even when she does, love is cruel. All is not fair in love and war when it comes to Buffy. And she kind of loses her love, and even not just romantic love with Angel, to her at least, she loses her mother. And she clearly seems to lose her home because she doesn't feel like she can stay in Sunnydale. So her arc this season, I feel like, is definitely more of a tragic one. We've definitely seen her have to grow up a lot in season 2. Now she's kind of seen a lot of death, and had to deal with a lot of death in so many different ways. Like in Killed by Death, she literally fought death in that episode. But also like the death of her cousin, she kind of found closure in that almost. But at the same time, she's had to deal with the death of Angel twice, in a way. The death of a lot of relationships she kind of held dear. The death of Kendra, who was, I feel like, someone she really could have understood and could have been really close with, but even that was taken away from her. But yeah, all the challenges we've seen her presented to her in season 2, she's kind of grown from every single one of them. And we've seen her be forced to go through so many different dilemmas, particularly to do what to do about Angel and Angelus. And she really has been forced to mature quite significantly throughout all of season 2, to the point that in the end, when Snyder kind of expelled her from school and she left and everything, school was probably the last thing on her mind, and she didn't really care that she'd been kicked out of school, which to most people her age, school would be one of the most important things to her, be it passing classes and doing exams and friends and relationships and stuff, and that's most teenagers' main thing. Whereas we see by the end of the season that is not at all important to Buffy because of everything she's had to go through throughout the season. So we've really seen life be very unkind to a girl who really just wants to help and wants to fulfill her destiny as best she can. But it's almost like the world of the Slayers, if you will, doesn't deserve Buffy. So that she's had a real kind of mature and tragic journey throughout the season. And obviously she's the core of the show because it's named after her. And a lot of the relationship we've seen, like Giles and Jenny and Angelus, Spike, Drusilla, all that, it's kind of revolved all around her because she is the Slayer. It makes sense. She's very much the core of the show, which makes it all the sadder to see the world really beat her down by the end of the season and take so much away from her. So hopefully in season 3 she can kind of reclaim this world to be her own. We'll see. But I've loved Buffy's character arc throughout the season. Sarah Michelle Gellar, damn, she's given some fantastic performances. And more and more capable as like the leading actress of the show, and Buffy is more than worthy of being the lead character as well, which is the most important thing. Obviously, you can have favourites outside of Buffy, because we all know that Willow is my favourite, shocking as it is, but I feel like if you're going to name the show after a character, you need that character to be, interesting and someone you can invest in, and Buffy truly does fit the bill in that regards. So I've loved what they've done with her throughout season 2. My heart absolutely does break for her. And we really do get to see just how far she's come, because of the last couple of episodes where we saw flashbacks to her life before becoming the Slayer. So we've truly seen in season 2 just how far she's come and how much she's changed. Who next? Maybe I should just do it in the order there, in the credits. So we'll go with Xander. Oh, Xander. Looking back at season 2 and everything, I clearly like Xander more than most, I think. But I think it's fair to say I've definitely had my issues with him. There have been a few things he's said and done throughout season 2 I completely disagreed with and found quite troublesome with, but I think it's very much because Xander's a character of the time that the show kind of aired and was written. So his kind of, I say, insensitivity to things for a lot of the time. His remarks to like feeding up Buffy or whatever, a lot of things like that. It was just sadly kind of the attitude at the time, and that is kind of unfortunate in sense, having started the show in 2018. But that aside, and I kind of have to put that aside because it's just how it was back then, unfortunately. Not that it's right. But that aside, I still really like Xander. I think he has some very funny moments. Nick Brendan gives a really great performance, and I love his loyalty to certain characters. And I think he does, for the most part, bring the lightheartedness and humour at the right time. Because it's very important to kind of have a character like that in the show, I think. Even if a lot of the time I haven't agreed with his viewpoint on things. His oversimplified view of things with Angelus at the end of the season. Basically all of his actions in episode 16, Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered, I think is the order that goes in. So all that aside, I do have a lot of issues with the character, but I think that shows just how complex he is, and how flawed he is, and therefore how real he is. I do think he's one of the most realistic characters on the show, which is pretty good going considering we have like vampires and demons and all that kind of stuff going on. I feel like we do need a character like Xander in there, and he does have some really sweet moments. And I'm excited to see if he will kind of get over this and really mature, because I don't think he's probably the most immature member of the Scoobies, shall I say. I love that they're called the Scoobies, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar went on to play Daphne. I think that's hilarious. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing if Xander's really going to mature as the show goes on. Should be interesting. But I do really like his loyalty to a lot of the characters, be it creepy or not. And I do think the best thing that happened to his character this season, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I think the best thing that happened to his character this season was him getting with Cordelia. I think that's a really sweet little relationship. I genuinely do. I'm shocked at how much I like them together. Almost completely out of the blue for me when that went down in What's My Line. But, it is what it is. I rolled with it and I ended up actually really liking it. I think those characters work really well together. And those those two coming together, I think, made me like both those characters all the more. So yeah, Xander, problematic at times, but flawed, complex, realistic, and he still brings a lot of the lightheartedness to the show that I feel we do need. And when episodes are Xander-centric, I still find a lot of interest in them, so clearly I am invested in him as a character. Then we come to my cinnamon bean. Honestly, I could just do the whole video talking about Willow. But Alison Hannigan's performance is always great. She's adorable, but she's learned more so than in season 1. She's really learned to take charge and find her role, like when she kind of took over from Miss Calendar when she died. You know, and she has that face. She orders people about. It's just adorable. And she's made all the more adorable by her relationship with Oz. My God. And just, I love her heart. I really love the way she thinks and the way her heart works. You know, when Buffy was kind of upset about Angel losing his soul, and people hadn't really clicked that it's because they'd slept together, and Willow kind of realised it quite quickly. And she was really supportive of that. I really like where they're kind of taking her character in terms of getting interested in like the magic and stuff. I feel like that could be a really interesting thing for her to do. But she has a very well-defined place in the gang, and I love that. But honestly, she's just a cinnamon roll. She can, you know, it's going to take a lot for her to ever disappoint me, to be honest. Because I just love the way she's written. I love the performance. She's just so wholesome. So sweet and loyal. And if anything bad ever happens to her, you know, whoever hurts her better fucking beware. That's all I'm going to say. So yeah, Willow is by far my favourite character. I just love her. She makes me smile whenever she comes on screen. You know, if I'm ever feeling down, I think of her in that big ass coat in Inca Mummy Girl. And just swoon. I love her. I love her. She's so wholesome. I can't wait to see where they're going to take her, because what a character. And then Giles. Poor Giles, man. He's been through a lot of shit in season 2, but he's also battled through that and continued to be there for people when they needed him, particularly Buffy after everything with Angelus. And his relationship with Jenny, I love. I got really invested in him through that relationship. So seeing that relationship be torn away from him was just tragic. And the performance is just sublime as always. He can, you know, do some comedic stuff really well. His scenes in Killed by Death with Cordelia, hilarious. He has some really funny moments in the finale as well. And, you know, he's sassy as fuck, but he's also smart and sensible. He has a really good... He's like an all-round character. You know, he has lots of different skill sets in terms of, like, dramatic stuff and comedic stuff. And I love that about him. I love that he's almost a father figure to a lot of the characters, particularly Buffy, obviously. And we learned a bit more about his past this season. You know, him being Ripper and everything. I love how the Dark Age really focused on him and his past. I just thought that was a really brilliant journey. And the way that kind of flipped it on his head. That he kind of thought he was kind of this sweet little innocent kind of man who couldn't really hurt a fly. But he has this really dark and dangerous past, which I loved. Giles was kind of the perfect character to have that story with. And I just love the role he has to play in the show. And I can't wait to see what on earth, you know, they can have him do next, because it's going to be entertaining. And then Angel and Angelus. Oh man, what a mess. Yeah, so I've mentioned David Boreanaz's performance. It's just sublime this season. And everything, you know, Angel, I loved how he was, you know, supportive of the team, supportive of Buffy. And he was loyal to this group of people, even if more so to Xander than anyone else really. He didn't always see eye to eye with them. He was always kind of supportive of them on their side, like in the Dark Age when he helped save the day. But I do feel like he did bring more to the season when he lost his soul and became Angelus, although I really did start to like him and Buffy a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of cheesiness in that relationship. I do genuinely believe that, and I will not change my mind. There was a lot of moments where I went at the things they were saying. However, him becoming Angelus, I think, has changed that for me. Because as soon as that happened, I kind of realised I really liked them together, and I was rooting for them to work things out. And when Angel, for the minute and a half he was back in the finale, and they had this kind of reunion, saying they love each other and stuff like that, I bought into it. I found it a lot more believable that after everything they'd been through, and the way they'd explored their relationship when they weren't together, made me love the relationship all the more when they kind of were reunited, if that makes sense. I feel like having them be torn apart in such a tragic way that they were, helped you to kind of root for them to get back together and therefore get more invested in the relationship than I ever was. Because it sounds horrible to say, but Buffy and Angel's relationship before that whole thing felt too easy and too predictable. This handsome stranger she meets in the premiere and everything, of course they're going to fall in love. Of course that's going to how that's how it's going to be. Which is almost kind of why part of me always kind of liked Buffy and Xander, the idea of that, because I just felt it wasn't the safe option. But now things have changed. Because as Angelus, he was an amazing villain, even though he killed Jenny the bastard, and he was an arsehole to quite a few people. He was a really effective villain. I felt the threat he had because we kind of spent the whole show thus far getting to know this character, and then suddenly he's the bad guy. So at the same time, the characters don't know where to stand with how to deal with him. We don't either, because we're torn over how they should go about things. And how that whole plotline eventually ended was heartbreaking, and just again got me really invested in that. And I think Angel reverting back to Angelus made him a really effective character overall, and it got me deeply invested in Buffy and Angel's relationship. So I think it's a resounding success the way they used Angel and Angelus this season. And then with Cordelia, wow, what a turnaround, shall we say. I really, really like Cordelia. She still has the one or two Cordelia moments where I roll my eyes and sigh, but that's no longer a ugh, what a bitchy thing to say. It's a ugh, what a Cordelia thing to say. It's more of an affectionate disgust now, if that makes sense. I feel like her relationship with Xander improved her character greatly, because it allowed her to have more layers than just being kind of a bitch, which she absolutely was in season 1. And she's kind of grown a bit closer to the whole gang in general, and she's helping out and all sorts now. So season 2 gave her layers, which I don't think she really had in season 1. So now I can buy into more the bitchy aspects of her character and find them funny, as opposed to just being annoyed by them like I was in season 1. Because now I know that that's just one layer of her, and that's just the way she is. Whereas I feel like in season 1, for the most part, that was the only character trait that was on display. So that's kind of all her character was. Whereas in season 2, she's really been developed. And Charisma Carpenter's had some really great moments. I mean, Go Fish, not my favourite episode, but one of my favourite things about it was Cordelia. And that speech she kind of gave when she thought Xander had become a fish person. Such a weird sentence. But yeah, Cordelia's come on leaps and bounds from season 1 for me. Season 2 did her a lot of justice. She may not have had an episode all about her, or a huge kind of character arc, even though she kind of stood up to the people she used to be with and kind of move to the new gang of people, because she kind of started to be true to herself and her heart. When she was wearing that locket in episode 16 that Xander had given her. Season 2 showed that she had a heart. And she has a place in the show. And yeah, just a massive turnaround. I love Cordelia. Crazy. I can't believe it's happened. But yeah, she's a great character. And I'm really glad that the season 2 managed to flesh her out as well as it did. Then in terms of some of the lesser characters, or not lesser, not main cast, I suppose. Spike, anytime Spike's in an episode, just a massive improvement, even more so than it already was. I'm sure there were good episodes even without Spike, but then when he turns up, it's like, yes. I love his sass. I love the way he got things done, particularly at the start of the season. I will say there was a bit of a lull when he was in the wheelchair for like 10,000 episodes. But, he really came back strong in the finale. And I feel like it still made sense to have him kind of be confined to the wheelchair, because obviously they kind of shifted Spike down a bit and made Angelus the main villain of the season, whereas originally it seemed to kind of be Spike who was like the big bad. But yeah, he has some really funny moments. He's oddly likeable, even though he's a bastard. The way he kind of plays off of Buffy or Joyce or Drusilla, Angel. He's a lot of fun. He's always fun to watch, and I can't wait to see more of him, because he honestly is one of my favourite characters this season. Whenever he's on screen, I think he's just electric, and I love that. Can't wait to see more of him. And Drusilla, she's weird. She's a weird one. I really like having her around. I think she's a very kind of interesting, different kind of villain. Because I feel like Spike kind of knows that things he does are wrong, and he just enjoys it. Whereas Drusilla, I feel like she's just in her own little world, and she's just doing what she thinks is best. She's not doing it because she's particularly evil. She just likes doing those things. Hero of her own story, that kind of thing. But I really love what she kind of brought to this season. That bit of weirdness. Really great performance by the actress. And I look forward to seeing what more they do with her. Because I'm sure we'll see her again. I don't know for sure if she comes back. I know Spike comes back. I know Angel comes back. I don't know if Drusilla comes back, but I'm pretty sure she will. Given how they ended things with her and Spike. So I'm excited to see a bit more of her, hopefully. But I think she was a very kind of fun, interesting addition to the season. And she provided a lot of creepy, weird moments, which I appreciate. And then with Jenny, or Miss Calendar, I love that we learned a lot more about her. Her relationship with Giles, super sweet. And then that kind of plot twist that she was like a gypsy and stuff, and she was there to, watch over Angel and everything. They made some very kind of brave and bold character choices in season 2, and I think Jenny's a very good example of that, because that could have easily made her quite unlikable, I think, to a lot of fans, maybe. But I felt like they got the balance right there. You'd still like her, even though she'd kind of been lying to the team for quite a long time. And, she fucking suffered for that lie. And I really got invested in that relationship, because I just thought her and Giles were really sweet together. And her relationship with Willow, her bond there, I think was really adorable. And then when that's snatched away, just as things are kind of looking up for her relationships with these people again, tragic. And I feel like it's going to be a wound to my heart that will take a lot of time to heal. And I will miss having her around all the time, because I love that she kind of kept showing up in season 2. We learned a bit more about her. I really liked her view of the world, how she was willing to help out, how she did kind of save the day in the end, because she gave them what they needed to restore Angel's soul, even though it just happened tragically a bit too late. So yeah, I love what she brought to this season. Really interesting character. I'm really sad we're probably not going to see any more of her. Then with Oz, oh my cinnamon bean, loved Seth Green's performance in this. Instantly likeable. I shipped him with Willow before the two had even met, which I think is a first for me, to be honest. I normally like shipping characters after the two characters have actually met, because for all I could have known, that Oz and Willow would never even interact, for all I knew, and I was still like shipping them, desperate for them to meet, which I think is a sign of a power couple. So yeah, I love how sweet he was with Willow. His relationship with Willow was just my everything. The way he kind of grew to interact with more people outside of the gang. What's springing to mind is him chasing after Buffy when she got turned into a rat. That interaction I think was really funny. How he kind of took the revelations about vampires and everything in his stride. And, you know, the twist of him becoming a werewolf and everything. How he deeply cared enough for Willow to kind of push her away when he was a werewolf so she wouldn't get hurt and everything. You know, he may kind of appear to be sort of shy and weak on the outside. He's a very strong character, and I love the kind of lightheartedness that he brings to the show and the group, and I hope we see a lot more of him in Season 3, because he's probably one of my favourites, honestly. If anything, I think he was quite underused. Once, you know, Phased had come and gone, we had that episode all about him. He didn't really do much more after that episode in Season 2, which is kind of sad. Obviously he helped out when he could, but aside from that, there wasn't a great deal happening with him, which is kind of a shame. So I hope we see a lot more of him in Season 3. But for me, he's a big highlight of Season 2, right from the second we saw him, and I was like, is that Seth Green? Yeah, I love Oz. Hope to see a lot more of him. And Joyce, I'm glad she got a bit more focus in this season, in like episodes like Ted and School Hard. She's a badass in School Hard. I loved her in that episode so much. She was just so awesome. And there's the argument whether or not... Oh, this just reminded me of something else I need to say about Xander later on. I'll come back to it. I think like there's an argument after the finale. Is she a good mother? I still think she is, because she clearly didn't mean what she said to Buffy about if you walk out this house, don't come back. Clearly she didn't mean that. And I can understand. She just found out her daughter was a fucking vampire slayer. She found out about vampires and all that. That's a lot to deal with, and of course she wants to sit down and talk about it. And she still hasn't really got to, you know, grips with the situation. She doesn't really understand that the world is at risk. So all she really sees is like her daughter pushing her away, like she's been doing for a long time, and she just snapped. So I can understand that, and she didn't mean it. I do think she's shown some amazing moments of kind of tenderness with her daughter, and she's a single mother, you know, a working single mother. Life gotta be hard for her. Like in the end of Innocence, she's there for Buffy, and she doesn't even need to ask what's going on. She doesn't need to know exactly what's going on. She just knows that her baby girl's upset, and she'll be there for her. So I really like what they did with Joyce this season, but I hope she and Buffy can make amends quite early on in Season 3, because, yeah, I have a thing with like relationships with mothers and stuff, so hopefully that'll be okay. But I really like the moments we've got with Joyce to shine this season. I hope we see a lot more of her, if anything. I love her to be around all the time and have bigger roles to play. She's only been the focus of like 1 or 2 episodes, so I hope we can see more of her. Oh yeah, and going back to Xander, I completely forgot when I was talking about him. But I got a lot of questions because in my YouTube version of my reaction to the finale, just for time reasons, I had to cut out the scene where Xander lies to Buffy about what Willow had said to him and told him. If you've watched it on Patreon, the full reaction, you'll know my reaction was, oh, Xander. That was basically it. I feel like that's just classic Xander again, being quite flawed and letting his personal feelings for both Buffy and Angel get in the way of his judgment. It's kind of betraying what Willow would have wanted in that moment, which is... it's just Xander being kind of problematic. Again, I can see why personally Xander did do it, because that's who he is as a character. I don't agree with it, of course not, because it came from Willow, and the cinnamon beans words are final. It's like the Bible. So yeah, I don't agree with what Xander did, in lying to Buffy. but you know, it's what it is. Lying is kind of a big thing this season, it seems, particularly with Lie to Me. But yeah, that's how I felt about that. And then a couple of more characters to mention. Kendra, I loved that idea of there being a new Slayer being called, because Buffy did technically die. I feel like we didn't get enough of her. She was only in 3 episodes, and even then, she was back for like 15 minutes and then died. So I'm sad about that. I feel like that was a wasted opportunity. I would have loved to have known a bit more about her. I feel like it had the makings of a really great friendship between her and Buffy. But it's a very interesting kind of character, and I feel like in time she could have become a brilliant character in her own right. But the way she was kind of underutilized in season 2, I think the idea of the character was more interesting than the character herself. But I still really liked her, and I'm sad we probably won't see more of her. But very awesome kind of addition to the season. I love what she brought to the 2-parter. What's my line? And then Snyder, got a lot more of him in this season. Still not loads, but I feel like that might change in season 3. But he's a slippery snake. I do not like him. He's mean, he's rude, and he's got something going on with the mayor, and I don't know what it is, but it's shady as fuck. And I don't trust him, I don't like him. I want him to be devoured by human hyena hybrids. Okay? Principal Flutie did not deserve that. Snyder did. But, you know, I'm intrigued by what they're going to do with him, because he is a slippery snake. But again, an interesting kind of secondary antagonist for the season. And then Ethan Rayne. He's only in 2 episodes, but I feel like he's very memorable, so I thought I'd give a shout out to that character, because I thought that was pretty cool, the way he was kind of introduced as the threat of Halloween. I thought it was really interesting, and then that connection to Giles being revealed, I love that. More so, I love him as a character because it was an exploration of Giles' past, but I thought he was a very interesting character, and a really cool performance as well. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I really liked what Ethan kind of brought to the episodes he was in. So yeah, that's kind of all the characters I wanted to highlight throughout season 2. I feel like I talked about them for way too long. Apologies for that. Hopefully you understood my analysis. I didn't ramble for too much about all of them. Obviously there are a few more characters that I feel like I could have talked about for ages. Particularly Billy from Lie to Me really stood out. But you know, 1 episode characters, I feel like I talked about him a lot in that 1 episode he was in. So I feel like his place was there, not in like the general review of the season. So yeah, that's all my characters out of the way. And then themes. You know, I've been open saying I'm not, you know, always in tune with the themes. There was kind of one that I had in my mind since about episode 15, 16. And it kind of kept on proving itself to me in terms of its legitimacy for the season. So I will be talking about that. But I feel like a major theme throughout season 2, and I probably imagine this will be a thing in every season, but death was very clearly a theme throughout season 2. And not just the physical demises, like we had loads of characters dying, and particularly, you know, the loss of Jenny being a huge example of that death. But we had like Buffy's dreams or visions where someone died, when she that's how she knew something was off with Jenny, because she kind of saw her in that vision. It was like a funeral scene. We lost loads of characters this season, so there's death in that terms. The death of Angel's soul, the way Buffy kind of saw that as the death of Angel, and that she'd killed Angel. And then Angel getting his soul back was kind of the death of Angelus, and then Angel died again, quite, you know, physically. And therefore that relationship died. Lots of relationships and friendships kind of died throughout season 2. You know, particularly in Buffy kind of seemingly cutting off the rest of her world. Buffy's world died at the end of season 2 because she seemed to have lost everything and left Sunnydale. So I feel like death is a major theme throughout season 2, but that's probably going to continue throughout the whole show. And yeah, so we saw the death of many relationships and friendships, and in, you know, Killed by Death to Kinder Egg, we kind of dealt with a physical embodiment of death. You know, literally fought death itself in that episode. So yeah, definitely a running theme, and I mentioned it in that reaction, I think, but I love that we lost Jenny in episode 17, then episode 18, they physically fought death, or the embodiment of death, and then again in episode 19, we had ghosts. It was like after death, which came after the episode about death, and we even had Giles momentarily believing the ghost in that episode was Jenny. So yeah, death is kind of a big theme, particularly in like those 3 episodes in the season. And then the main theme topic I suppose that I noticed out season 2 was the idea of having a dark side and the kind of battle between who you were or who you are against who you should be. And I have a few examples written down, but I need to flip the page, so there we go. I'm holding it up with my phone because I'm not very well organised. But yeah, the idea of who you are, who you were, versus who you should be, I feel like big theme throughout season 2. I feel like we kind of saw it in the What's My Line 2 part with Buffy and Kendra, as Buffy was kind of like, well, Kendra's about now. Do I need to be the Slayer? Is this who I need to be anymore? Should I carry on fighting this fight? And even when she was bad, we kind of had this new Buffy, because she was kind of dealing with her death and everything. Death? There we go, big theme. Literally a huge part of the premiere episode. So I was kind of dealing with, should she still be the Slayer if there's this new one running around now? I feel like the most obvious example of this is Angel and Angelus. We have Angelus being this dark side of Angel that had been locked away when he got his soul back. And then he became Angelus again, and we're wrestling with, should we just outright kill Angelus, or should we try and save Angel? Who should we allow this person to be? If we bring Angel back, do we have the right to make him go through all that pain and torment again of remembering everything he'd just done? Or do we not even give him the chance of, living again and just outright kill him? So there's that idea of like his dark side. Should we let him be Angelus? But would he still want to be Angel after all the things he's done? And then another kind of obvious example of that is Giles. Because we saw this Ripper side of him and this dark side. And through his experiences as Ripper, Giles decided that he should be who we've kind of gotten to know throughout the show, and this really supportive person. But when he needs to be, he kind of, particularly in the Dark Age, we saw him kind of snap, kind of physically assault a guy. And there's potential for that to kind of still creep out. And I don't know if they'll ever explore that fully with Giles, but the idea that there is this dark part of him inside is always very interesting, because you never know what's going to set off. I know Jenny's death certainly did, when he went and, set Angelus's base on fire and, started beating him and stuff. So that wrestling, should he be that man who would avenge Jenny's death? Or should he be this more compassionate person, and this watcher who needs to help Buffy instead of putting himself in danger? But we also kind of saw it with the bully guy from the Halloween episode, who then turned out to be gay in the later episode of the season. Kind of the whole episode of Halloween was kind of about who you were, who you should be, because loads of people kind of changed who they were, which is interesting. But yeah, we kind of saw that guy. I've completely forgotten his name. I completely blanked on his name. But we saw who he was, and he was kind of putting up this barrier because he didn't want people to know he was gay, and he was really mean to Xander and everything. Then we kind of saw him slowly start to embrace who he should be, which I liked. I think that was Phases, was that episode, I think, and then they explored that. I'm not sure entirely. It was around then. Yeah, so we saw that with him. With Ted, albeit very briefly, because it's just a one episode. He was very much ultimately a robot. But we had this side of him he was with Joyce and in public, and then the side he showed with Buffy. And and I just want to throw a, Ted, what's the word I'm looking for? Shout out to that episode, for how they kind of pulled the rug under my feet when Ted apparently died. That was dark as fuck. I love that twist. But yeah, we kind of saw that with Ted as well. The man he used to be, the man he should be, the man he is now, the man he is now being a robot. And then with Billy, when he came back into Buffy's life, there was kind of an ulterior motive behind his treatment of her in that moment. It's not the person she used to know, because obviously he was dying. So should he be this guy who wants to live forever just because he's dying, or should he be true to who he used to be and die right, I suppose? And then Jenny, she kind of kept her past as a gypsy hidden. That side of who she really was, a kind of dark side in that sense. And then when that kind of all got exposed, she was kind of wrestling with, should she really commit to this gypsy ideal in her chats with her uncle, or should she try and be this new person she became when she arrived in Sunnydale and fell in love with Giles, and commit to that relationship, commit to helping the cause, as opposed to hindering it. So there's that. And then again, Cordelia, who she was, this bitchy person who was like wanting to be popular and hanging out with all those kind of chic girls, if you will. And should she stick with that, or should she be who she probably wants to be, in order to be with Xander and not feel compelled to be popular and not seek approval from people she doesn't want to be approved by, if you will. So that was just a big theme that I noticed throughout the whole season. I mainly started noticing it with Angelus and then with Giles. Those are the two examples that jumped out of my head, but as I went back through the season, I found a lot of examples of that, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And that just kind of harks back to the idea of the monster inside of you, which is another big thing in the season. Like Angelus inside of Angel, Ripper inside of Giles, the werewolf inside of Oz, the fish monsters like literally like peeling the skin away of the people they used to be, and then even kind of literal examples of that, the monster inside that big ass mansion thing with Reptile Boy, the monster inside the hospital with the Kinder Egg, and also the monster inside all of us, because everyone has a dark side, or do we? And I like that season 2 also explored that normal life can be just as hard as having to fight vampires and demons and everything, because they're still worried about exams and stuff, even with all these monsters trying to kill them every week. So I like that, they still explored that life can just be unfair sometimes, even without all these monsters and vampires coming after you. So those are kinds of some of the themes I really noticed and picked up on in season 2. There's probably more. There's probably a lot of examples of those that I've missed. Those are the ones that really stuck out to me. But let me know what kind of things you picked up on for season 2. And now we probably come to the bit most people will be waiting for, and that is the favourite episodes section. And let's try and get through this very quickly. I don't know if you can hear my voice, it's getting very dry and my throat's starting to hurt because I've been talking for 700 years, I don't know. I can't check until I finished recording, so we'll see. So for this, I kind of wanted to do a more well-rounded review than I did for season 1. And because it's our show, it's not just my experience watching it, I get a lot out of your guys' comments as well and what you got out of these episodes. Because that can often change my opinions on characters and storylines and stuff. So, like I mentioned before, at the start of the video, I asked you guys to give me your top 3 favourite episodes in one of my posts. And I got a lot of response to that, so thank you to everyone who commented on that. And I'm sorry for putting you through that, having to come down with 3. Some of you were cheats and counted 2 parts as one episode. Some of you just outright gave me like 5 or 6. But I took all those things into account. Excuse me. And I wanted to kind of come up with your guys' favourite episodes that you, as a consensus, kind of voted for, and compare it with my top 5. Because I came up with my top 5 before I went back to that post and counted up all your votes on the different episodes, so it didn't like influence mine. And there are a few differences in the different kind of top fives, although it actually kind of worked out very well. Because you guys, talented as you are, managed to perfectly come up with the top 10, which is amazing. And by that I mean 18 out of the 22 episodes in Season 2 got at least one vote as a top 3 episode. There's only 4 episodes that didn't get any votes, and those were Some Assembly Required, Inca Mummy Girl, Reptile Boy, and Go Fish. So those are the 4 episodes that got no votes. Let's just have a moment to mourn them. Never mind. Rest in peace. Although, you know, they're not going to be many people's favourites, I understand. Although I actually genuinely enjoy Inca Mummy Girl. And I think out of all the Season 2, I would say Reptile Boy is probably the only episode I dislike, honestly. I enjoy some parts of Some Assembly Required. I actually quite enjoy Inca Mummy Girl, and I think Go Fish was kind of fun. So I think Reptile Boy is kind of the only episode I wouldn't really like in Season 2. But those are the ones that received no votes whatsoever. So the remaining 18 episodes perfectly kind of got sorted into a top 10. So I kind of wanted to just go through that to see if you guys as individuals agree with the consensus that you all came up with, and then we can compare it to my top 5 episodes. So there are quite a few like joint ones, because there were 6 episodes in joint 10th place, and those were in episode order. When She Was Bad, The Dark Age, What's My Line Part 1, Ted, Bad Eggs, and Killed by Death. They all got 1 vote. In 9th place was Phases, which got 2 votes. Joint 8th was What's My Line Part 2, and Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered with 3 votes. 7th was Lie to Me with 4 votes. Joint 6th was Surprise and I Only Have Eyes for You with 5 votes. 5th was Halloween with 9 votes, so this is your top 5 now, obviously. 4th was School Hard with 10 votes. Joint 3rd was Innocence and Becoming Part 1 with 15 votes. 2nd was Passion with 19 votes. And then, of course, your joint favourite episode at number 1 was Becoming Part 2, which got 29 votes, so a whole 10 votes up on 2nd place. So, a clear winner for your favourite episode overall. So thank you all thank you to everyone who commented on that post and gave your votes. I feel like it's completely fair. That top 5 is very strong. So yeah, those are what you guys kind of voted for. And I thought that'd just be kind of interesting to compare to mine, because looking at it, we basically do share a top 5, but mine are in a different order. And Becoming Part 1 isn't actually in my top 5, but it was kind of joint 3rd with you guys. But, there were a few honourable mentions. I really liked Becoming Part 1, but it wasn't, I don't think it was ever going to get in my top 5, to be honest. But Lie to Me, The Dark Age, Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered, and I Only Have Eyes for You were kind of my honourable mentions that I really really wanted to put in, but there were just some episodes that were just outright better. But my top 5 influenced, how good I thought the episodes were, but also, some of the characters may have got more focused of characters that I liked, so that may have boosted them up. There might have been some particular scenes that just really stood out to me, so that may have changed my opinions on them as a whole. And also some of the interactions with you guys could also kind of influence how I feel about episodes. So that's kind of really helped shape my top 5. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. And my top 5 starts off with, of course, shockingly, number 5. And in 5th place, it's School Hard. For me, I think this was probably... Prophecy Girl came very close, but I feel like this was the first properly outstanding episode of Buffy for me. This was the first time I was like, whoa, this is what this show can do. Obviously we had the introduction to Spike and Drusilla, and he quickly got rid of the Anointed One, which was hilarious. And that whole kind of storyline with the siege of the school and Joyce being an absolute badass. I just loved everything that was going on in this episode. We had a really effective villain in Spike. Some really great kind of action sequences. There were some really great action sequences throughout season 2. But yeah, I just really loved this episode. Genuinely fun, genuinely kind of creepy at times. And who could ever forget that scene with Willow and Cordelia locked in the cupboard? That was iconic. So yeah, that was School Hard. That's number 5 on my list of top 5. Just a genuinely fantastic episode, and one that really made me stop and listen to this show, because wow, what an introduction to Spike, how amazing. And then at number 4, it's Passion. I found this really hard to kind of distinguish between different episodes. There was one episode I knew that I enjoyed, but I didn't think it was going to be as high up on this list as it was. Although I suppose I could say that for episode number 1 and 2 actually. But yeah, number 4 was Passion. More so the emotions behind this episode is really what got to me. And also the support I got from you guys on this episode was amazing. How you all comforting me after losing Jenny. Because I was genuinely bummed about that. And all your comments being really nice about that was just so sweet. So that also kind of influenced how much I look fondly back on this episode, even though it ripped my fucking heart out. Some amazing performances. The shock twist of Jenny dying is massive. So we had a really amazing villain in Angelus. I loved everything the episode was really going for. Almost kind of made me feel sick at places, you know, when Giles was about to discover Jenny's body and you knew what was coming. Just awful, but superbly written, superbly performed. One of the most emotional and mature episodes of Buffy that I've seen so far. And it really is just an almost flawless, you know, hour of television. And it's an episode that will stick with me for a very long time. And I felt that immediate impact. You know, if an episode makes you cry, I feel like, you know, it's a good one. And this one certainly fucking did. So yeah, that's why Passion had to creep into the top 5. And then at number 3, this is probably the biggest difference in my top 5 compared to yours. For me, number 3 is Becoming Part 2, which is obviously the general favourite in the vote with you guys. Obviously, I still really liked it. It was really emotional, and a fantastic kind of episode. The stakes are really high. Really great character moments. Really great payoff to the themes and character arcs of the whole season. And that ending is just so sad. But for me, what kind of stopping it from creeping right to the top of the list is some of the things like Xander's love confession stuff gets me really worried for season 3. So that just kind of makes me like, oh, I'm worried, and I just don't want to think about that aspect of the episode, which is kind of why I'm trying to like push it away. Even though the whole thing was just a superb finale, and you know, obviously 3rd best episode out of a 22 episode season. It's still fucking amazing. And yeah, it was a fantastic episode, fantastic end to the season. But also, I feel like it probably would have been higher if I didn't know Angel wasn't coming back. But, you know, regardless, it's still an amazing episode. So emotional, but still had moments of humour and levity, and a real gut punch of an ending. That final montage just really hits me. Whew. Remembering Jenny and that Sarah McLachlan song, like, I've seen Toy Story 2, I know the power of that woman. So yeah, that's Becoming Part 2, that is number 3 in my top 5. Just a stunning finale overall. Number 2 on the list is Halloween, which was, for you guys, 5th. Yeah, I feel like this episode is rated very highly for me because I had so much fun with it. And I just remember the buzz I got from watching this episode from start to finish. I loved how unique the concept behind it was. I love that it opened the door to explore more with Giles. I thought this was one of the most truly unique episodes of Buffy so far. I just loved the premise so much. I was really invested in that. I loved how Willow kind of had to take a stand and be the saviour of the day. I love the long-term consequences this had. They've mentioned this a few times, and when Xander had to sneak him and Cordelia into that military base in one of the episodes later in the season, he did it because he remembered some of his experiences as a soldier in this episode. I thought that's just such clever writing and so good for the character development, and it all leads back to this episode. And I just had an absolute blast watching it, and yeah, it just blew me away. And again, your guys' response to that reaction was amazing, and people have pointed me in the direction of some Buffy forums. I can't remember the website name, but some Buffy forums when they were talking about my reaction to this episode, and it just made me smile from ear to ear that people talk to me about me on Buffy forums. I think that's so cool. And they mentioned this episode and how they could tell that I genuinely enjoyed it, and I really did. And this was kind of the episode for me when I was like, I'm really loving this show. I'm really enjoying Buffy. I had so much fun with this episode, and it was just so unique. So many funny moments, so many, amazing character moments, and the long-lasting impact it had throughout the rest of the season just, made this an episode I hold really, really dear to my heart, and that's why it's at number 2. And then at number 1, my favourite episode of season 2 is Innocence, which for you was joint third, along with Becoming Part 1. I just remember the feeling when this episode ended. I cut out a significant amount of silence from my reaction for this episode after the credits had finished rolling, because I was just trying to process everything, because I feel like this is the episode Buffy changed and became a completely different entity of awesomeness. And there have been some episodes of Buffy, like Halloween for example, or Passion, where I've been like, that was a great episode, and a couple of days later I'd be like, oh, I love that episode so much. After I watched Innocence, I stayed up lying in bed for hours thinking about that episode and how much it changed the characters, changed the show, and just shifted the whole season completely in terms of plot. It's just such a brave and bold thing to do with a character like Angel, to just make him the villain just like that. So brave. Not many shows I think would do that and take the risk to turn a character a lot of people would love and be invested in into the villain of this season. So that bravery really stuck out to me, and it was just an episode I think about so often. Everyone's reactions to Angel changing, that ending scene with Buffy and Joyce hit me in the feels. The scene near the end with Giles and Buffy in Giles's car, where he's telling her that, you have my support and my respect. A lovely scene. It really focused on relationships, which I always love in the show. It's an absolute game changer for the show. And while Halloween was kind of the moment that I was like, I'm really loving Buffy, this is a fantastic show, Innocence for me was when Buffy became more than just a show to me. Because up until this point, I think it's safe to say, along with Titans probably, Buffy was my favourite thing to react to. I always got so excited to record and react to Buffy. After Innocence, I was like, this is just must-watch television. This is all I want to do. And I was just... This is kind of, for me, the episode where there stopped being a screen there. It stopped being me, a screen, the show. After this episode, that screen was like, bye! And I was in the show. And it just kind of became a big part of my life. And after that, I just started thinking about Buffy a lot. And it just becomes a big part of my thought process every day. And I'm always like, oh, I can't wait to react to Buffy next. And, oh, I've got a new comment on my Buffy reaction. And yeah, I always get hyped when the Google Drive full reactions finish processing so I can post on Patreon. I get really excited to see what everyone thinks. And 99% of the comments I get on my Buffy reactions are always so nice, even when they don't agree with my thoughts on some of the episodes. They're always so kind of dignified about it, apart from the 1% of arseholes. But that's the internet. And yeah, the reaction I got from you guys to my reaction to this as well is just, because I feel like this is the episode that changed a lot of people in terms of their relationship with Buffy, and yeah, this just shifted and kind of blended my world and Buffy together, because it's just a part of me now and a big part of my channel too. And I love that. I love that my relationship with this show has grown and changed so much from when I started. I remember freaking out from that doll in episode 9 of season 1 and the spiders in episode 10 of season 1. And now here I am, like, sobbing over Willow and Miss Calendar and everything like that. I feel like Innocence really shows how far I've already come in my journey with Buffy. And, the response from you guys was just incredible. And that's why it's my favourite episode of season 2. Because it was the episode that made Buffy more than just a show for me. And it became kind of part of my actual being. And yeah, it's the episode that made Buffy a way of life for me, not just a TV show I react to. And that's why it's my favourite episode of season 2. So those are my top 5. But yeah, if you didn't get a chance or didn't see that post, that helped me with like your guys' top 10. Let me know your favourite episodes from season 2. I'd be very interested in seeing your thoughts, because I always am. So yeah, those are my top 5 episodes of the season. And finally, it's probably movie length at this point, I apologise, but I just wanted to quickly go through some predictions for season 3. Because people are quite interested in season 2 predictions for my season 1 review, so I thought I'd do it again for this. Obviously, don't tell me if I get any of these right, or if I'm completely wrong, because that's going to really ruin the surprise of when things do or do not happen. But I've got quite a few more predictions for this time than last time. I think the start of the season, I feel like the focus might be on saving Buffy, or saving her soul, if you will. At least like episode 1, maybe even 1 and 2 or 3 or whatever. Because it's not like, I don't think season 2 started with her coming back to Sunnydale. I don't think season 3 is just going to be like, okay, I needed a break, I'm back now. I feel like Buffy's going to need to be brought back to Sunnydale, because she doesn't feel like she has anything there for her. So I feel like the first few episodes at most, or maybe even at least, of the season need to be about saving Buffy and, getting her groove back, because she went through a lot throughout the whole of season 2, and even more so in the finale. Then also, I feel like it's kind of a given, I think, that everything with Xander's love confession to Willow is going to come back, probably to haunt me and ruin everything I love and hold dear. And I'm not excited for it. I really am not. I'm really nervous about where this plot's going. I genuinely am. There was a time when I kind of liked the idea of Xander and Willow, but now I'm like, you're both in really good relationships. Please, no. So I'm terrified about that. I truly am. But we'll see what happens. If they do something good with it, I'm here for it. But I feel like that's definitely going to be a big thing that gets addressed in season 3. Although I said that about season 2, especially after episode 1, when Xander and Willow kind of had a moment of romantic tension. But then they never directly kind of properly addressed that throughout the rest of season 2, so who knows. But I think that's going to be a thing in season 3. I also think Snyder and this whole thing with him calling the mayor, I think that's going to get much more focus in season 3. In terms of what that plot could be and what's going on with Snyder, I couldn't tell you. I don't have a Scooby. Scoobies. But I think it's going to be maybe not the main plot of the season. Could be, quite easily. If it's interesting enough. I'm sure it could carry a whole season. But I think that's going to be at least one of the major kind of subplots running throughout season 3, and I'm excited to see where they go with that. In terms of like other characters, I don't think we're going to see Spike and Drew return straight away. I feel like they might come maybe a third of the way through the season, maybe halfway through the season, or even closer to the end. But I don't see them being the big bad of season 3, at least not right from the off. I think it might be a good few episodes before we see them again. That's just my gut feeling. Obviously, I could be completely bloody wrong. But yeah, that's kind of what my gut's telling me. And as for Angel coming back, I know he will. I know he will. Because after season 3 Buffy's over, I can start Angel, I believe. And a few people were like, oh, don't spoil things for Liam, because for all he knows it's a prequel. I know it's not a prequel, don't worry. I already knew that before I started Buffy, so that's not things that have been spoiled for me. So of course that does take some of the impact of his death away, knowing that he comes back, but I don't know when he comes back in season 3. Again, I think it could be maybe halfway through the season, in kind of like a 2-parter, in like a similar point of the season as like What's My Line part 1 and 2. Maybe that could be dealing with him returning. We'll have to wait and see, you know. There were ways of keeping him in the show without him coming back alive, if you will. They often do like a lot of dreams and visions in this show, so I feel like Buffy could, you know, maybe have images or dreams or visions of Angel being there as like a coping mechanism or something. If you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, Fitzsimmons, my favourite fictional couple of all time. And at the start of season 2, you see Fitz has visions of Simmons around him. That's kind of his way of dealing with her leaving. I feel like maybe it could be that kind of thing. And again, it's a Joss Whedon show, so maybe that is a similar way of ripping my heart out. Who knows? So that's how I kind of feel about Angel coming back. And then my most important prediction of all for season 3 is, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be solid on this one and get this right, I'm 99.9% certain that Willow will continue to be a cinnamon roll in season 3. And that's the most important prediction of all. So yeah, those are my season 3 predictions. Whether or not I'm right, no fucking clue. Do I want to know? No, I fucking don't. Not until I've watched the season. So yeah, I'll probably revisit those in my season 3 review when I get to that in 2021. I mean, I got through season 2 reasonably quickly. I can't remember exactly when I started it. Who knows, actually? I don't know. But I think it was about halfway through the season is when I started doing 2 episodes in a row. Because there's a gap in my schedule that I just filled with an extra Buffy episode. So yeah. Around then, I think it started with around like What's My Line. It's when I started doing more than one in a week. But yeah, either way, I'm going to get through season 3, probably the quickest I've gotten through a season. I mean, probably not season 1 because there's only 12 episodes, but you know, I'll definitely get through it quicker than season 2. But you know, let's not rush this process, you know. I mean, unless Article 13 goes through and I can't do reactions anymore, which is a definite possibility that I'm terrified of. And I would be absolutely devastated if that's the case. So hopefully we can campaign against that, because I won't be able to do reactions anymore. But you know, let's not even think about that. I don't want that kind of negativity in such a positive, glowing review as this. But yeah, anyway, that side. Yeah, season 3, so excited to start it. I hope you guys are excited for me to get into it as well, and see what it has to offer. Yeah, I'm really excited to start season 3 because I fucking love this show. It is a huge part of my day-to-day life now, and I'm so glad that I chose to start this. You know, I mean, it killed me starting 4 new shows at the same time. That was a mistake. I should not have done that. I gave myself way too much to do. But I'm really glad that one of the shows I did start was Buffy. So you know, huge shout out and thanks to my friend Jess, or Seska Says, as you probably know her, the Queen of Reactions, because she was instrumental in me starting Buffy. And thank you to all you guys who watch and like and comment and subscribe, and you know, subscribe to my Patreon as well. I hit over 100 Patreons over the weekend, which is incredible. So thank you so much to all of you guys. You're amazing. I love you all for all your amazing support, and I can't wait to see that continue in season 3. Yeah, season 2 of Buffy was just something else. I've loved every second of reacting to it, even like the bad episodes. I still get something out of them. I still really enjoy watching it, because even if there are bad episodes of Buffy, you can still enjoy watching them, and I think that's the magic of this show. So yeah, that is my review of season 2. Absolutely loved it. You know, 10 cinnamon rolls out of 10, and I can't wait to start season 3 with you guys. It's going to be quite spectacular, I hope. So yeah, unless She-Manix comes back, then we're done. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this review. Thank you so much for all your support on my channel and on my Buffy reaction so far. I cannot wait to continue this journey with you guys. So yeah, thank you so much, and until season 3, thanks for watching.